A rural gang tries to run a lone black rancher off her land. They don't know she's an ex-Special Forces soldier, and the hunt is about to be reversed. The dust kicked up as the rusty pickup truck screeched to a halt. Two of Silas Thorne's men got out, smirking. "Last warning, Maya," the bigger one growled, gesturing to her cattle. "These fields are gonna belong to the colonel. You can leave on your feet or be carried out." Maya simply leaned against the fence post, her eyes as cold and steady as the Montana winter. "You and what army?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. "If you believe that true strength comes from within and that justice must be served, hit that like button, subscribe for more incredible stories, and comment with your city and the word justice to show your support for Maya." Maya Jackson, 34, wasn't just a rancher. For 10 years, she'd been Sergeant Jackson, an Army Ranger who operated in the world's most hostile environments. After her honorable discharge, all she wanted was the peace she'd fought for, right here on the Montana land her grandfather had worked his entire life to own. The Cross Creek Ranch was her sanctuary, a place to heal from the scars nobody could see. It was a sprawling property of rolling hills and clear streams, the only home she'd ever truly known outside of a uniform. She had returned 2 years ago, trading her rifle for a lasso, her combat boots for worn leather ones. But peace was the last thing Silas Thorne was interested in. A wealthy land baron with the local sheriff in his pocket, Thorne had been systematically buying out or forcing out small ranchers for months. He saw the valley not as a community of hard-working families, but as a single massive piece of real estate for a lucrative corporate resort deal. Maya's ranch was the last major holdout, the heart of the valley. His methods were brutal and designed to break people's spirits, cutting fences in the dead of night, spooking herds so they'd stampede, and sending his thugs to deliver threats that grew more violent each week. He was a cancer, and his influence was spreading. The two men in front of her were Jed and Caleb, Thorne's favorite bullies. They were big, dumb, and enjoyed their work. "Funny," Jed sneered, stepping closer. "Real funny. The colonel ain't laughing. He made you a final offer, a generous one considering." "What he offered was an insult to my grandfather's memory," Maya stated, not moving an inch. Her posture was relaxed, but her eyes scanned everything. The distance between them, the position of their hands, the escape routes behind her. Old habits. Caleb spit on the ground. "Your grandfather is dead. He can't help you. There's no one to help you. You're all alone out here, little lady." The threat hung in the air, thick and ugly. They expected her to tremble, to cry, to beg. It's what the others had done. They saw a woman alone and assumed she was weak. Maya pushed herself off the fence post. "I suggest you get back in your truck and drive away," she said, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. Jed laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Or what? You gonna call the sheriff? Oh, wait. He's playing poker with the boss right now." He took another step forward, reaching out as if to grab her arm. In a movement too fast to track, Maya's hand shot out not to block him, but to grip the front of his shirt. She used his own momentum, twisting and pulling him off balance. Jed stumbled forward, his eyes wide with shock. She spun him around, slammed him against the side of his own truck, and pressed her forearm against his throat. Caleb froze, his hand hovering near the pistol on his hip, too stunned to draw it. "Listen to me very carefully," Maya whispered, her voice a low growl right in Jed's ear. "This is my land. You are not welcome here. This is your first and only warning from me. Tell Thorne the next time he sends his dogs, I won't send them back with just a message." She released him, shoving him away. Jed gasped for air, rubbing his neck, a look of pure disbelief on his face. He looked at Caleb, then back at Maya, his bravado gone. Thorne and his men saw a lone woman trying to manage a ranch. They didn't see the strategist who could map terrain in her sleep, the survivor who knew how to turn an enemy's strength into a weakness. They were about to learn that cornering a soldier only creates a more dangerous fight. As the two men scrambled back into their truck and sped away, leaving a cloud of dust and humiliation behind, Maya stood her ground. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. This was a declaration of war. They thought they were hunting a sheep, but they had just provoked a sleeping lion. How far will a trained soldier go when her home and her life are on the line? Maya watched the truck disappear, the dust settling back onto the dry road. She didn't go back inside. Instead, she began a perimeter check. Her training wasn't a switch she could turn off. It was ingrained in every cell. Her eyes scanned the fence line, looking for fresh cuts, footprints, anything out of place. She moved with an economy of motion, her steps silent and deliberate. This wasn't just her home. It was a tactical position. She knew every dip in the land, every cluster of trees that could provide cover, every sightline from the surrounding hills. Thorne's mistake wasn't just underestimating her, it was trying to fight her on her own ground. She spent an hour walking the property line, her mind cataloging weaknesses and strengths. The creek was a vulnerability. The North Ridge gave a perfect vantage point. She was no longer just a rancher protecting her herd. She was a soldier fortifying her base. Meanwhile, Jed and Caleb sped back to the Big T Saloon, the unofficial headquarters of Silas Thorne. They walked in, trying to look tough, but the fear was still fresh in their eyes. Thorne was in his usual booth in the back, a custom leather seat overlooking the entire establishment. He was a man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored Western suit that looked out of place among the worn denim of his men. He didn't look like a rancher. He looked like a CEO, which is what he was. He sipped his whiskey, a single large ice cube clinking against the glass. "Well?" Thorne asked without looking up. Jed cleared his throat. "Boss, there was a problem." Thorne slowly raised his eyes. They were pale blue and held no warmth. "A problem? With one woman. I sent 2 of my best men to deliver a simple message, and you come back telling me there was a problem?" "She ain't like the others, Colonel," Caleb stammered. She got the drop on Jed. Fast. Like, real fast." Jed rubbed his throat instinctively. "She's not scared. Said next time you send your dogs, she won't send them back." Thorne set his glass down with a soft click. A slow, cold smile spread across his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Is that so? A little fire. I can appreciate that. But fire, if not contained, can burn you. It seems Miss Jackson needs a more direct lesson in how things work in my valley." He took a long, slow sip of his whiskey. "She's proud of that land, isn't she? Proud of her grandfather's legacy." He looked at a different man sitting at the bar. A wiry, silent man named Finn. "Finn, take a couple of the boys. Go pay her a visit tonight. Don't go near the house. I want you to find the main water pump for her livestock troughs. I hear it's a dry season. Cattle get thirsty." Finn just nodded, finished his beer, and slid off the stool. Thorne looked back at Jed and Caleb. "You two are on fence duty tonight, on the Miller property. Get out of my sight." The next morning, Maya drove her old Ford F-150 into the small town of Harmony Creek. It wasn't much more than a single main street with a general store, a diner, and a post office. But it was the community she'd grown up in. As she walked into the Harmony Creek General Store, the few people inside went quiet. They nodded at her, but their eyes darted away nervously. They were scared. Thorne owned the bank that held their loans, and his company was the biggest employer now that most of the small ranches were gone. Earl, the elderly man behind the counter, gave her a sad smile. He had known her grandfather well. "Maya," he said, his voice a low rasp. "Need feed? And about 100 feet of steel cable, Earl. Some heavy-duty clamps, too." Earl's eyebrows shot up. "That's not for fencing. Just a few projects I'm working on," she said, her voice even. He began gathering her items, his movements slow and deliberate. "Heard you had visitors yesterday," he said, not looking at her. "Jed and Caleb were in the diner this morning, looking spooked." "They delivered a message," Maya said simply. "People are worried about you, kid. Earl whispered, leaning over the counter. "Thorn doesn't lose. He's broken better men than you." "I'm not a man, Earl, and I don't break." He sighed, ringing up her total. "Just be careful. This isn't the army. There are no rules out here but his." Maya paid, loaded her supplies, and headed back to the ranch, the weight of Earl's warning heavy in the air. When she arrived, an unnatural silence greeted her. Her cattle were clustered together, lowing anxiously, far from their usual grazing spot near the main trough. A cold dread washed over her. She drove over the hill and saw it. The pump was smashed to pieces, its components scattered. The main water pipe leading from the well was bent and ruptured. The trough was nearly empty. It was a crippling blow, designed to destroy her livelihood from the inside out. She got out of the truck and walked slowly to the wreckage. She knelt, picking up a piece of the shattered cast iron. This was Thorn's answer. No more veiled threats. This was a direct assault. She looked at her thirsty cattle, then at the rolling hills of her land. They thought this would break her. They thought this was the end of the fight. Maya stood up, her face a mask of cold fury. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. The rancher was done negotiating. The soldier was now taking command. Fury was a luxury she couldn't afford. Action was the only currency that mattered. Maya spent the next 2 hours herding her cattle down to the narrow creek at the southern edge of her property. It was a temporary solution and a risky one. Moving the herd exposed them and used up their energy, but dehydration would kill them faster than any of Thorn's men. The work was grueling, but her body was conditioned for hardship. As the last of the herd drank from the cool stream, she didn't rest. She went back to her truck and unloaded the steel cable and clamps she'd bought from Earl. She worked through the afternoon, with the sun beating down on her, her movements precise and efficient. She wasn't repairing the pump. That would be a waste of time. They would just destroy it again. Instead, she was fortifying. She used the steel cable to rig a series of non-lethal traps along the main access road to her property and the trail leading to the destroyed pump. They weren't designed to kill, but to incapacitate and announce. One was a simple tripwire connected to a stack of empty fuel drums filled with rocks, positioned on a small incline. Another was a snare designed to hoist the front end of a vehicle off the ground. It was military-grade improvisation. She was turning her ranch into a defensive position, using the terrain to her advantage. She was creating a perimeter. Anyone crossing it would learn she was not easy prey. As dusk settled, casting long shadows across the valley, Maya went inside her small, functional ranch house. The rancher who had come home for peace was gone. In her place was Sergeant Jackson. She pulled out a locked footlocker from under her bed, the same one that had traveled with her across 3 continents. She opened it. Inside, nestled in foam, were the tools of her former trade. A compact set of binoculars with night vision capabilities, a K-bar knife, camouflage face paint, and dark, durable clothing. She changed methodically, her movements economical and silent. She wasn't preparing for a fight, she was preparing for a hunt. She drove her truck to within a mile of the Big T Saloon and parked it in a dense grove of pine trees, completely hidden from the road. The rest of the way she went on foot, moving through the darkness with a familiarity that unnerved the nocturnal animals. She skirted the main entrance of the saloon, the loud country music and laughter spilling out into the night. She was interested in the back, where the real business happened. She found a spot on a low, rocky outcrop that overlooked the saloon's rear parking lot and delivery area, a place where Thorn's men gathered to smoke and talk away from the noise. Through her binoculars, she scanned the faces. Jed and Caleb were there, leaning against a truck, looking cocky again. But she was looking for the man Thorn had trusted with the pump. After 20 minutes, he appeared. He was wiry and moved with a quiet confidence, unlike the brutish Jed. He lit a cigarette, and 2 other men joined him. "Heard the colonel was pleased," one of the men said, his voice carrying clearly in the still night air. The wiry man, Finn, took a long drag from his cigarette. It was easy. Sledgehammer does the talking. She won't have water for a week. By then her herd will be half dead. He flicked the ash onto the ground. He wants us to pay a visit to the Miller place tomorrow night. Same deal, but simpler. Just cut the south fence and stampede the herd toward the highway. Make it look like an accident. The other man chuckled. Miller will fold after that. He's barely hanging on as it is. Maya lowered the binoculars, her jaw tight. That was it. Actionable intelligence. She had a target, a location, and a timeline. The Millers were an elderly couple who had refused Thorne's first lowball offer. This was his way of persuading them. She didn't stay to hear more. The mission was complete. She slipped back into the darkness as silently as she had arrived, a ghost in the Montana night. Back in her truck, she didn't drive home immediately. She pulled out a worn, detailed map of the valley. She knew the Miller ranch well. She'd helped Old Man Miller round up strays a few years back. She knew its layout, its fences, its access points. Thorne's men thought they were operating with impunity, shrouded by the fear they created. They were about to learn what it felt like to be hunted in the dark. They planned to create an accident. Maya planned to give them one. The next day wasn't for planning. It was for protocol. Maya knew she had to go through the motions, if only to confirm what she already knew. She drove to the Harmony Creek Sheriff's Department, a small brick building that looked more like a post office. Sheriff Brody was a large man whose uniform was stretched tight across his belly. He was cleaning a hunting rifle on his desk when Maya walked in. He didn't get up. Maya, heard you had some trouble with your water pump. It was destroyed, Sheriff. By Thorne's men, she said, her voice flat and devoid of emotion. Brody sighed, putting the rifle down. He leaned back in his creaky chair. That's a serious accusation. You have any proof? Any witnesses? You and I both know who's doing this. I'm filing a report. You can file whatever you like, Brody said, his tone shifting from feigned concern to annoyance. But a report is just paper. Without evidence, my hands are tied. It's probably just kids, Maya. Vandalism. The same kids who have been threatening every rancher in this valley. The same kids who work for the man you play poker with every Thursday. Sheriff Brody stood up then, his face hardening. Watch your tone. I'm the law here. If you have a real complaint with real evidence, bring it to me. Otherwise, I suggest you go home and figure out how to patch up your pipes. Don't come in here making wild accusations you can't back up. Maya stared at him for a long moment, her eyes like chips of ice. She didn't say another word. She just turned and walked out. The message was clear. There would be no help. The law was a dead end. She was on her own. That night, she didn't bother with camouflage paint. She wore dark clothes, her K-bar knife strapped to her thigh, and carried a heavy duffel bag. She parked her truck 1.5 miles from the Miller Ranch, approaching their south fence on foot through the thick woods that bordered their property. The moon was a sliver, providing just enough light for her trained eyes. She found the spot where the fence ran closest to the highway, exactly where a panicked herd would break through into traffic. This was their target zone. She was about to start working when a voice cut through the darkness. "Who's there?" Maya froze, melting back into the shadows of a large oak tree. A young man, maybe 19 or 20, stepped out from behind a cattle feeder. He was holding a baseball bat like a weapon, but his hands were trembling. "I'm not one of them," Maya said, her voice a low, calm whisper. The young man squinted. "Maya? Maya Jackson? What are you doing here? Who are you?" she asked, stepping out of the shadow. "I'm Ben Miller. My grandparents own this place." He lowered the bat slightly. "I heard what Thorne's men did to your ranch. I figured they'd be coming for us next. I've been sleeping in the barn for 3 nights. Your grandparents know you're out here? They think I'm at a friend's house. They just worry," he said, his voice a mixture of fear and defiance. "Are you here to help?" "I'm here to stop them," Maya corrected. She looked at the boy. He was scared, but he was standing his ground. There was fight in him. "They're coming tonight. They're going to cut this fence and stampede your herd onto that road." Ben's face went pale. "We have to call the sheriff." "I already did," Maya said grimly. "He's not coming." The reality of their situation settled on the young man's shoulders. He looked defeated. "So, what do? We can't fight them. There were 3 of them at your place," they said. "We're not going to fight them," Maya said, dropping her duffel bag to the ground with a heavy thud. "We're going to make them wish they never came." She pulled out a coil of high-tensile wire, pliers, and several small, dark objects. "What's that?" Ben asked. "An early warning system." And a surprise. For the next hour, under Maya's quiet direction, they worked. She showed Ben how to rig the wire low to the ground, connecting it to a set of old tin cans filled with bolts in a nearby tree. It was a simple, effective alarm. Then she moved to the main event. A few yards from the fence was a narrow, muddy cattle runoff ditch, hidden by tall grass. It was about 4 feet deep. Using the steel cable she'd bought from Earl, she created a tripwire across the path leading to the fence, anchoring it to a heavy, half-rotten log. The log was positioned perfectly to swing down and sweep anyone on the path directly into the ditch. "It won't kill them," she explained to Ben, who was watching with a mix of awe and terror. "But it will be a very unpleasant surprise. They'll be disoriented, angry and loud, and that's when we make the call." "What call?" "The one to the highway patrol," Maya said, a cold smile touching her lips for the first time. "Reporting a disturbance and trespassers. By the time Brody gets the news, it'll be too late for him to cover it up." Just as she finished checking the tension on the wire, a faint sound reached them. The low rumble of an approaching truck engine, its headlights off. "And they're here," Ben whispered, his voice cracking. Maya grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the cover of a dense thicket. "Stay down, stay quiet, and don't move until I say so." The truck rolled to a stop on the dirt road about 100 yards away. 3 figures got out, carrying bolt cutters and what looked like long prods. They started walking toward the fence, their boots crunching on the dry ground. They were walking right into the trap. From their hiding spot, Maya and Ben watched the 3 shadows move closer. Finn was in the lead, holding the bolt cutters like a weapon. The other 2 fanned out slightly, carrying the long cattle prods they would use to spook the herd. They moved with a casual arrogance, convinced they were the predators in this valley. Ben was so tense he was barely breathing. Maya was perfectly still, her focus absolute. "This is gonna be quick," Finn muttered to his men, loud enough for Maya to hear. "Cut the wire, give the cows a little zap, and we're back at the saloon before last call." He took another step, his heavy boots snagging the almost invisible tripwire. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, from the darkness above the ditch, came the groan of stressed wood. The heavy log, released from its tension, swung down with incredible speed. It didn't hit them directly. It was a sweep. The log caught all 3 men at shin level. Their legs were knocked out from under them in a single brutal motion. They yelled in surprise as they tumbled backward, landing in a heap in the 4-foot-deep muddy ditch. The sound was a wet, sickening thud, followed by a chorus of curses and groans of pain. One of them had landed face first in the muck. Before the men could even figure out what happened, the secondary alarm went off. The wire connected to the tree rattled the tin cans, creating a loud, clattering racket that echoed in the night. The miller's cattle, already on edge, began to low nervously. "What the hell was that?" one of the men yelled from the ditch, trying to get his footing in the slippery mud. "It was a trap," Finn snarled, spitting mud from his mouth. "Get out of here, now!" That was Maya's cue. She put a hand on Ben's shoulder. "Make the call, now. Stick to the script." Ben, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and adrenaline, fumbled for his phone and dialed 911. Maya stood up. She didn't hide. She walked to the edge of the ditch and looked down at the 3 men struggling in the dark. They froze, looking up at her silhouette against the faint moonlight. Finn recognized her. "You!" he spat, his face a mask of fury. "I told your boss I wouldn't send his dogs back with just a message," Maya said, her voice carrying an unnatural calm. "This is the message. Stay off Miller's land. Stay off my land." She turned and walked back to Ben, who was finishing the call. "They're sending a highway patrol car. The dispatcher said they're closer than the sheriff's department." "Good," Maya said. "That's what we wanted." Within 10 minutes, the flashing red and blue lights of a highway patrol cruiser cut through the darkness. A state trooper, a professional-looking man named Officer Riley, got out, his hand resting on his sidearm. He saw Ben waving him down, then his flashlight beam fell on the scene, the cut in the fence that Finn's men hadn't made, the obvious trap, and the 3 men still trying to claw their way out of the muddy ditch. "Evening," Riley said, his eyes taking in everything. "Got a call about a disturbance." Just then, Sheriff Brody's truck came roaring down the road, kicking up dust. He got out, looking flustered and angry. "Riley, what are you doing here? This is my jurisdiction." "Your dispatcher patched the 911 call through to us, Sheriff. Said we had a closer unit," Riley said calmly, not taking his eyes off the men in the ditch. "Looks like we have some trespassers and attempted property damage." He shined his light on the bolt cutters lying in the grass. Finn and his men were finally climbing out, covered head to toe in mud and filth. They looked at Brody, expecting him to fix it. Brody turned to Ben. "What's going on here, son?" he blustered, trying to take control. "These men were on our property, Sheriff," Ben said, his voice surprisingly steady. Maya's presence had given him courage. "We heard them planning to cut the fence and hurt our cattle." "They fell," Maya added, her expression unreadable. "It's a dangerous ditch." Brody shot her a venomous look. He knew exactly what had happened. He was trapped. With a state trooper as a witness, he couldn't just let Thorne's men go. It was too public. "I'll handle this," Brody said to Riley. "I'll be filing my own report," Riley replied, making it clear this wasn't going to be swept under the rug. An hour later, back at the Big T Saloon, Thorne listened to Brody's frantic explanation over the phone. Thorne was silent for a long time. "So let me get this straight, Sheriff," Thorne finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. "My men were arrested by the state police on a simple intimidation run because they fell into a ditch." "Silas, it was a setup. She was waiting for them. It was a trap." "Yes," Thorne said, a new, cold understanding dawning on him. "I'm beginning to see that. This isn't a rancher. This is something else entirely." He hung up the phone without another word. The game had changed. His usual tactics of fear and brute force were not working. He was no longer dealing with a scared farmer. He was dealing with an opponent, a strategist. And he knew, with chilling certainty, that this opponent would have to be eliminated, not just intimidated. By sunrise, everyone in Harmony Creek knew. News, especially the kind involving Silas Thorne's men getting hauled away in cuffs, moved faster than gossip. When Maya walked into the Harmony Creek diner for a rare cup of coffee she didn't make herself, the place didn't fall silent like it used to. The usual defeated quiet was replaced by hushed, energetic whispers. For the first time in months, people made eye contact with her. A few old-timers even nodded in respect. The fear of Thorne was still there, thick as molasses, but now it was mixed with something else, a spark of defiance. Ben Miller was sitting at a corner table. He saw her and immediately got up, walking over. His face was still pale, but his eyes were bright. "The whole town is talking," he said in a low voice. "They're saying Finn and the others got charged with trespassing, attempted destruction of property, and resisting arrest. The state troopers took it seriously. Brody couldn't bury it. They'll be out on bail by noon," Maya said, pouring cream into her coffee. She wasn't celebrating, she was calculating. Thorne will pay it. This wasn't a victory, it was just a message. "Maybe," Ben said, a new confidence in his voice. "But people heard it. My grandparents, they cried this morning. Not because they were scared, but because they were relieved. They said no one has stood up to Thorne like that since, ever." Just then, Earl from the general store walked in. He saw Maya and came straight to her table. He placed a small, heavy canvas bag on the table. "This is for you," he said gruffly. Maya looked at the bag. "Earl, I can't take your money." "It ain't from me," he said, looking around the diner. "It's from a few of us. For your water pump." "You're fighting for all of us, kid. Least we can do is help you keep your own water running." He tipped his hat and walked out before she could protest. Maya looked at the bag, then at Ben. The message she had sent last night had received a reply, and it wasn't the one she expected. For the first time, she wasn't entirely alone. Meanwhile, at his sprawling ranch estate miles outside of town, Silas Thorne was not yelling. He was calm, which was far more terrifying. He stood in his oak-paneled study, looking out the window at the valley he considered his property. Sheriff Brody stood in the middle of the room, sweating in his uniform, twisting his hat in his hands. "They were released an hour ago," Brody said nervously. "Finn is angry." "I don't care about Finn's feelings," Thorne said without turning around. "I care about my reputation. I care about control. Last night I lost a measure of it. A state trooper has a file on his desk with my employees' names in it. A file that mentions the Miller Ranch. A file that will be remembered the next time something accidental happens in this valley." He turned around slowly. His pale blue eyes were devoid of any emotion. "Your incompetence has made a nuisance into a problem, and this problem now requires a more permanent solution." "Silas, what are you gonna do?" Brody asked, his voice trembling slightly. Thorne walked over to his desk and picked up his phone. He dialed a number from memory. "That's no longer your concern, Sheriff. Your job is simple. Stay out of the way, and make sure everyone else does too." He put the phone to his ear. "It's Thorne," he said into the receiver. "I have a situation here. A pest problem that requires a specialist. Yes, she's proving to be remarkably resilient. I need you to come handle it. And I need it to be quiet and final." He listened for a moment, then a thin, cruel smile touched his lips. "Excellent. I'll wire the deposit." He hung up and looked at Brody. "Go home, Sheriff, and pray you don't hear from me again." Back at her ranch, Maya wasn't fixing the pump. With the money from the townspeople, she could buy a new one, but she knew it was pointless until the root of the problem was gone. Instead, she was studying the map of the valley. The same one she'd used the night before. Ben was with her. "He's a businessman," she said, tapping a location on the map labeled Thorne Consolidated Mining. "He's not just a rancher. This is about a resort, which means investors, contracts, permits. That's his real weakness." "What do you want me to do?" Ben asked, ready for orders. "You're a kid. No one will suspect you. I need you to listen. At the diner, at the store, find out who works in his offices, who drives his trucks, who handles his paperwork. I need a name. Someone on the inside who might be unhappy, someone with access." "You want to find dirt on him," Ben said, understanding immediately. "I want to find a lever," Maya corrected. "Something to break his grip on this valley for good. Brute force is his game. We're not going to play his game. We're going to play mine." As Ben left, filled with a new sense of purpose, Maya's eyes drifted to the main road leading to her ranch. The traps she'd set were still there, silent and waiting. But she knew the next threat wouldn't come down that road. Thorne wasn't going to send thugs in a pickup truck again. He was done with intimidation. The next move would be an attack, and it would be aimed directly at her. 2 days passed. The quiet was heavy, unnatural. Maya felt it in the air. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm or before an ambush. She spent her days working her cattle, mending fences, and reinforcing her home, but her mind was elsewhere. Her senses were on high alert, a state she hadn't lived in since her last deployment. Every gust of wind in the trees, every hawk circling overhead was a potential threat. She wasn't just defending her land anymore, she was occupying hostile territory. She slept in 4-hour shifts, a shotgun leaning against her nightstand. Peace was a distant memory. On the 3rd day, Ben showed up at her gate, his face flushed with excitement. He looked less like a scared kid and more like a soldier reporting to his commander. "I got something," he said, barely containing his eagerness. "I've been having lunch at the diner every day." Jed and Caleb are always in there bragging, but they're idiots. The real information came from the table behind them. He pulled out a small, crumpled napkin. There's a woman, Martha Riley. She's an accountant who has worked for Thorne Consolidated for 15 years. She was talking to her friend, complaining. She said Thorne is making her get creative with the environmental impact reports for the new resort project. Said the numbers for chemical runoff into the valley's water table are a complete fiction. She's scared. She thinks if the EPA ever did a real audit, she'd be the one who goes to jail, not Thorne. Maya took the napkin. Martha Riley. This was it. This was the lever. A disgruntled employee terrified of being the scapegoat. Good work, Ben, Maya said, and the simple praise made the young man stand a little taller. Now you need to stay away. From me, from my ranch. It's going to get more dangerous. I'm not scared, Ben said. I know, Maya replied, her eyes serious. That's why you need to be smart. You've done your part. Let me do mine. That evening, as the sun began to dip below the mountains, Maya saw it. A thin plume of smoke rising from the north ridge of her property. It was the farthest point from her house, a dense patch of woods that was hard to access. It wasn't a lightning strike. The sky was clear. It wasn't a campfire. It was deliberate. Her heart rate didn't spike. Instead, a cold, familiar calm washed over her. The waiting was over. She grabbed a fire extinguisher and a shovel, but left them by the door. She knew this wasn't about a fire. She went to her footlocker and pulled out her night vision binoculars and a hunting rifle she inherited from her grandfather, a weapon she knew better than her own name. She didn't head for the fire. She circled wide, moving south and then east, using the setting sun to her back to mask her approach. She moved through the gullies and thickets, silent as a shadow, until she was on the high ground overlooking the fire. Through her binoculars, she scanned the scene. The fire was small, contained, burning in a perfect circle. It was a beacon, a lure. It was designed to draw her out, to force her into the open, to make her predictable. She swept the area around the fire, looking for the architect of the trap. Nothing, no movement, no heat signatures through the foliage. This person was good, a professional. They wouldn't be sitting in plain sight. They'd be in a hide, a sniper's nest, waiting patiently for their target to walk into the kill zone. She scanned the terrain again, looking for the most logical firing position. A rocky outcropping about 200 yards from the fire. It offered a clear line of sight and excellent cover. She focused her binoculars on the rocks, searching for a flicker of movement, the glint of a rifle scope, anything, and then she saw it. Not a person, but a sign. A single, freshly broken branch on a pine tree near the rocks. It was too clean, too recent. It was a mistake, a tiny flaw in an otherwise perfect setup. He was there, or had been. She didn't move. She waited. The sun disappeared, and the valley was plunged into darkness. The fire was the only source of light. She switched to night vision. For an hour, she remained perfectly still, watching the hide. Nothing. The professional was patient, but Maya was more patient. This was her land. She could wait all night. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of absolute silence, a shadow detached itself from the rocks. It moved with a fluid, disciplined grace that spoke of years of training. It was a man dressed in dark gear, carrying a long-range rifle with a suppressor. He wasn't one of Thorne's usual thugs. This was the specialist. He scanned the area around the fire one last time, clearly realizing his target wasn't coming. Then he turned and melted back into the woods, heading away from her ranch. Maya lowered her rifle, her knuckles white. She didn't take the shot. Killing him wasn't the mission. Understanding him was. She now knew what she was up against. This wasn't a land dispute anymore. This was a hunt between two skilled predators. And Thorne had just confirmed that the only way he wanted her off this land was in a body bag. Undefined, Maya didn't go back to her house right away. She went to the small fire and put it out methodically with her shovel, burying the embers under dirt. She worked with a cold efficiency, erasing the specialist's work, reclaiming her land one shovelful at a time. The air still smelled of smoke and danger. When she finally returned to her house, she didn't sleep. She cleaned her grandfather's rifle. She stripped it down, oiled the components, and reassembled it with the practiced ease of a master craftsman. Every click of the metal was a reaffirmation of her purpose. The rancher who wanted peace was a ghost. The soldier was all that remained. The next morning, she didn't drive into town. She drove to the outskirts of the neighboring town, a larger, more anonymous place where Martha Riley lived. She parked 2 blocks away from the modest suburban house and watched. She saw Martha leave for work, her shoulders slumped, her face etched with worry. She saw her come home. She saw the lights go on. Maya waited for the deep darkness of a moonless night before she moved. She didn't break a window or force a lock. She found the weak point in the old house's security, a loose screen on a back window, and slipped inside as silently as a wisp of smoke. She found Martha in the living room, staring blankly at a television screen, a half-empty glass of wine in her hand. Maya didn't speak. She just stood in the shadows of the hallway until Martha sensed she wasn't alone. Martha gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, the wine glass crashing to the floor. "Who are you? What do you want?" "My name is Maya Jackson," Maya said, her voice a low, even tone that cut through the fear. She didn't step forward. "You're the accountant for Thorn Consolidated." Martha began to tremble. "I don't know anything. Please don't hurt me." "I'm not here to hurt you, Martha. I'm here to save you," Maya said. "You're cooking the books on Thorn's environmental reports. When the EPA finds out, and they will, who do you think he's going to blame? The wealthy land baron with the expensive lawyers, or the loyal accountant whose signature is on every fraudulent document?" The color drained from Martha's face. Maya had just spoken her deepest fear out loud. "He'll ruin you," Maya continued, her voice relentless. "He'll send you to prison and call it the cost of doing business. I'm offering you another option. Give me the real reports, the original data. Give me the proof of what he's doing." "He'll kill me," Martha whispered, tears streaming down her face. "He's already trying to kill me," Maya said, the words hanging in the air with chilling finality. "Which means right now, I'm the most dangerous person he knows, and I'm the only one who can protect you. You have 24 hours to decide which side you want to be on." Maya didn't wait for an answer. She turned and slipped back out the window, disappearing into the night as completely as she had appeared. When she returned to her ranch, something was wrong. The front porch light, which she had left on, was off. The bulb was shattered. Lying directly under it on the top step was a single brass shell casing. It was from a high-powered rifle. It was clean, almost polished. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. "I can get this close. I can get to your home. You are not safe." The specialist was telling her that he had chosen the new battlefield. Her blood ran cold. She drew her sidearm and cleared the house, room by room, a ghost in her own home. It was empty. He hadn't come inside. He didn't need to. He had made his point. Thorn's thugs were a pack of dogs. This man was a wolf, and he was now at her door. The time for strategy and levers was running out. This would have to end, and it would have to end soon. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from a burner number. "I have them. Where?" It was Martha. She had made her choice. Maya looked at the shell casing in her hand. She looked around at the home she had fought so hard to protect. She couldn't fight him here. He had the advantage of surprise. She had to choose the ground, a place she knew, a place he wouldn't expect, a place that belonged to the enemy. She texted back. "Thorn's old mining office on Route 12. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone. Leave the documents in the front office and walk away." It was a lie. She didn't want Martha anywhere near the place. She called Ben on a secure line. "I need you to pick someone up tomorrow night, and then you disappear until you hear from me. No arguments." She then sent a final text to Martha. "Change of plans. A boy named Ben will meet you at the diner at 10 p.m. Give him the package. He'll keep you safe. Now, the trap was set. Thorne's specialist would be watching her, expecting her to go to the mining office to retrieve the package. He would follow her there to a place of Thorne's own making, a place where he would feel comfortable and in control. He would walk into the abandoned building, expecting to find his target, but he wouldn't be the hunter. He would be the prey. Maya began to pack a duffel bag, not with ranching tools, but with the instruments of war. The game was over. The battle for the valley was about to be fought in the darkness of a single, derelict building. Maya arrived at the abandoned mining office hours before midnight. She didn't drive her truck. She walked the last 2 miles through the woods, circling the property twice before approaching. The building was a skeleton of rust and broken glass, a relic from a time when Thorne's father had ripped coal from the earth. It was a place of decay, a perfect tomb. She slipped inside through a collapsed section of the rear wall and began to prepare her battlefield. She didn't set explosive traps. This wasn't about demolition. This was a personal hunt. She used what was there. Piles of rusted metal sheeting, loose floorboards, dangling chains from an old pulley system. She created noisemakers and obstacles, channeling her opponent's path, forcing him to move where she wanted. She found her own hide in the rafters of the main processing room, a place of deep shadow that gave her a commanding view of the main entrance and the front office where the drop was supposed to happen. Then she waited. At 11:50 p.m., she saw him. A dark shape moving with practiced ease across the moonlit yard. The specialist didn't approach the front door. He circled the building just as she had, testing for weaknesses. He was a professional, and he was being cautious. He found the same collapsed wall she had used and slipped inside, his suppressed rifle held at the ready. Maya tracked him from above, her breathing slow and even, her body perfectly still. He moved with the confidence of a predator entering another animal's den. He cleared the first few rooms with methodical precision, his movements economical and silent. He was good, very good. He was making his way toward the front office, expecting to find Maya waiting for him there, vulnerable as she retrieved the non-existent package. As he stepped through the doorway into the main processing room, his boot caught on a wire Maya had stretched across the floor. It wasn't a trap, it was an introduction. The wire pulled a can full of bolts off a high shelf, sending it crashing to the concrete floor. The sound was deafening in the silence. The specialist didn't flinch. He dropped to one knee, instantly scanning the high ground, his rifle sweeping the rafters. Maya was already moving. She dropped from her perch, landing silently on a pile of coal dust 20 feet behind him. "You're a long way from home," Maya said, her voice echoing in the vast empty space. He spun around, faster than she expected, bringing his rifle to bear. But she wasn't there. She was already behind a rusted ore cart. "Thorne pays well," the specialist said, his voice a low professional rasp. "But he didn't mention I'd be hunting a ghost." "You're not hunting me," Maya's voice came from a different direction now. "You're trapped in here with me." The hunt began. It was a deadly game of cat and mouse in the dark. He had superior firepower, but she had the terrain. She knew every shadow, every weak floorboard, every piece of cover. She used the acoustics of the cavernous room to her advantage, throwing her voice, creating diversions. She would knock over a piece of metal on one side of the room, and as he turned to fire, she would be flanking him from the other. He was disciplined, never firing wildly, conserving his ammunition. He was trying to draw her out, to force her into a mistake. But Maya didn't make mistakes. She was patient, chipping away at his confidence, turning his strengths into weaknesses. He was an intruder in her world now. Finally, she saw her opening. He had taken cover behind a large, dilapidated piece of machinery, reloading his weapon. She was above him, on a catwalk he hadn't cleared. She dropped her grandfather's rifle. It clattered loudly on the metal walkway. The specialist reacted instantly, raising his rifle and firing 2 precise shots at the sound. In that split second, Maya launched herself from the catwalk. She landed directly on his back, her full weight driving him to the ground. The rifle flew from his hands. Before he could react, she had her K-bar knife to his throat. He was strong and he fought back, but she had the leverage and the element of surprise. The struggle was brief, brutal and silent. He lay still. Maya stood up, breathing heavily, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She picked up his rifle. It was a state-of-the-art piece of equipment, cold and impersonal. She looked down at the man who had been sent to kill her. He was just a tool. The real enemy was still sitting in his mansion, drinking his whiskey. And now, she was coming for him. Maya didn't leave the specialist's body. She left him as a message. She walked out of the mining office, taking his silenced rifle and a satellite phone from his tactical vest. She found his vehicle, a nondescript black SUV, hidden in a grove of trees a quarter-mile away. The keys were exactly where she expected them to be. She was no longer Maya Jackson, the rancher. She was an operator, and she was using the enemy's own assets against him. She drove not toward her ranch, but toward the sprawling estate of Silas Thorne. The mansion was a monument to his ego, a fortress of stone and glass perched on a hill overlooking the valley he sought to conquer. She parked the SUV a mile from his front gate and proceeded on foot, moving through the dense forest that bordered his property line. She moved with a purpose that was both terrifying and absolute. The estate's security was expensive and obvious. High fences, motion sensor lights and cameras. For a soldier trained in infiltration, it was a textbook exercise. She cut the power to a small section of the fence, the zap of the electricity barely a whisper in the night. She moved through the gap, a ghost in the manicured grounds. She avoided the open lawns, sticking to the deep shadows cast by imported trees, her eyes scanning the house, mapping its layout, identifying the single lighted window on the second floor, his study, his sanctuary. Thorne was pouring himself another whiskey when he heard the faint click of the French doors leading to his balcony. He dismissed it as the wind. He was safe here, untouchable. He sat in his high-backed leather chair, savoring the burn of the alcohol, waiting for the call from his specialist, confirming the job was done. "He's not going to call," a voice said from the shadows of the room. Thorne froze, the glass halfway to his lips. He spun his chair around. Maya Jackson stood there, not 20 feet from him. She wasn't holding a weapon. She didn't need to. Her presence was threat enough. "How?" Thorne stammered, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. "My security is designed to stop criminals," Maya said, stepping into the dim light. "I'm a soldier." Thorne's fear was quickly replaced by his innate arrogance. He reached for a drawer in his desk. "I wouldn't," Maya warned, her voice dropping a degree colder. "Your pistol is in there, but you won't reach it in time. And even if you did, what then? You can't kill your way out of this." She tossed a small satellite phone onto his polished desk. It skidded to a stop next to his whiskey glass. "That was your specialist's. The last text he received was from you. Is it done?" "The answer is yes. It is done, just not the way you intended." Thorne stared at the phone, then back at Maya, the blood draining from his face. He finally understood. "What do you want?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. "Money? The ranch is yours. Just name your price." "My price is your world," Maya said. She walked forward and placed a thick manila envelope on the desk. "This is your legacy, Thorne. Martha Riley's original environmental reports. The real ones. The ones that show you've been poisoning the water table for years. The ones that will send you to federal prison and bankrupt your entire corporation." Thorne lunged for the envelope, but Maya was faster. She placed her hand on it, holding it down. "It's over," she said. "Your name won't be on a resort. It will be on an indictment. Every person in this valley you bullied, every family you broke, they're all going to watch you fall." Thorne slumped back in his chair, defeated. He looked old and small. "You've destroyed me. You destroyed yourself." Maya corrected. "You just needed someone to deliver the bill." She took her hand off the envelope. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she opened the desk drawer herself, took out his silver-plated pistol, and placed it on the desk next to the files. "There are 2 ways this ends for you, Colonel," she said, using his title with dripping contempt. "A long public trial where you lose everything, or a quiet private solution. The choice is yours." Maya turned and walked back to the balcony doors. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Her war was over. She was halfway across the lawn when a single, muffled shot echoed from the mansion. The light in the study window went out. Justice, forged in the Montana darkness, had been served. The news hit Harmony Creek like a flash flood. Silas Thorne, the untouchable colonel, found dead in his study. The official report, signed by a grim-faced state detective and not Sheriff Brody, called it a suicide. On his desk, they found a signed confession and a mountain of evidence detailing years of environmental fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. An anonymous tip had led them to the documents. The story the evidence told was so damning that Thorne Consolidated was frozen by federal marshals within 48 hours. The empire was dead. The fallout was swift. With his patron gone and his name all over the fraudulent reports as a co-conspirator, Sheriff Brody's career evaporated overnight. He didn't even bother to show up for work the next day. Officer Riley of the State Highway Patrol, now part of a state-level task force, was the one who went to his house to collect his badge. Brody answered the door in his pajamas, looking like a man who hadn't slept. He handed over the badge without a word and shut the door. The law in Harmony Creek was no longer for sale. The fear that had choked the valley for years began to dissipate. People started talking again, not in whispers, but in the open. The Big T Saloon closed its doors, its leather booths suddenly empty of Thorne's thugs, who had scattered like rats from a sinking ship. Some ranchers who had been forced to sell their land under duress began talking to lawyers, realizing the contracts Thorne had forced on them were now void. A sense of hope, fragile but real, returned to the valley. Martha Riley, with a new identity and a sizable witness protection fund, was put on a bus to a new life somewhere far away, her name never once connected to the investigation. The manila envelope Ben had picked up from her was burned in an old oil drum on Maya's ranch. Its purpose served. A month later, Maya was back on her land. She wasn't Sergeant Jackson anymore. She was just Maya. She used the money the townspeople had given her, along with some of her own, to buy a new industrial-grade water pump. Ben Miller was there helping her install it, no longer a scared kid, but a capable young man who had found a mentor and a purpose. "Think that'll hold?" he asked, wiping grease from his hands as they tightened the final bolt. "It'll hold," Maya said, her voice softer than it had been in weeks. "We'll make sure of it." They turned the system on, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, clean, clear water gushed into the trough. Her cattle, grazing peacefully nearby, ambled over for a drink. The sound of the pump was the sound of life returning to normal. That evening, Maya sat on her porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. The valley was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It was peaceful. The scars of her war, both old and new, were still there, but they no longer defined her. She had come home seeking sanctuary and had been forced to become a soldier again, but in defending her home, she had liberated an entire community. She had discovered that the peace she was looking for wasn't something you could find. It was something you had to build, and sometimes something you had to fight for. She looked out at the fields her grandfather had tilled, at the cattle that were her future. The traps along the fence line were gone. The footlocker full of tactical gear was locked away under her bed again. She was a rancher. This was her land. And for the first time since she'd returned, she felt truly at peace. The war was over. She was finally home. 6 months later, spring had come to Harmony Creek Valley. The grass was a vibrant green, the streams ran full and clear, and the air felt lighter. The change was more than just seasonal. Inside the bustling Harmony Creek diner, the clatter of cutlery and the hum of cheerful conversation had replaced the fearful silence that had once defined it. Maya sat at a table by the window, sipping her coffee. She wasn't an outcast or a curiosity anymore. She was a neighbor. People greeted her with genuine smiles, not nervous glances. Ben Miller, home for a weekend from his first semester of agricultural college, slid into the booth opposite her. He was full of talk about soil science and modern ranching techniques, his eyes bright with the future. He told her how his grandparents had joined a new co-op with other local ranchers, getting better prices for their cattle now that Thorne's monopoly was broken. The whole valley was healing, rebuilding itself from the ground up. Maya looked out the window at the peaceful main street. She saw Earl sweeping the sidewalk in front of his store, whistling a tune. She saw families she'd never seen before, people who had moved back now that the shadow of Silas Thorne was gone. Her victory hadn't been a single explosive moment in a dark mansion. It was this, the quiet, steady return of life, the restoration of a community's soul. She had fought a war in the shadows so that her neighbors could finally live in the sun. Maya's incredible story is a powerful testament to the strength that lies hidden within us. It shows that even when faced with overwhelming greed and corruption, one person, armed with courage and conviction, can change the world around them. She wasn't looking for a fight, but when it came to her door, she didn't just defend her home. She became a symbol of justice for an entire valley. She proved that true power isn't about how much you can take, but how much you're willing to protect. What do you think was Maya's strongest weapon? Was it her military training, her unbreakable will, or the love she had for her grandfather's land? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were inspired by Maya's incredible fight and believe that the spirit of a true warrior can never be broken, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing for more stories of courage and resilience. And to show us that you stood with Maya until the very end, let us know you're one of our most dedicated viewers by commenting with the phrase, "I watched until the end." Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful narratives to light. This story reminds us that heroes aren't always born. They are often forged in the fires of adversity. They are ordinary people who, when pushed to the absolute limit, make the extraordinary choice to fight back. Thank you for joining us on this journey. The fight for justice never truly ends, and there are countless other stories of incredible people turning the tables on those who wronged them. To continue, click on the video that's appearing on your screen now for another unforgettable story of sweet revenge. We know you'll love it. We'll see you there.